What's up, Net Soldiers? I'm the Alliance, and welcome back to another video, guys. This is going to be a pretty different video than I usually do, and the reason for that is because I'm actually going to be going over my entire Blu-ray collection. I have hundreds of Blu-rays, so yes, this video is going to be a long video, but I'm not going to necessarily take 10 minutes, 15 minutes to talk about one movie. I'm going to be doing little brief summaries on how I feel about the movie, and if you like it, let me know in the comments below. This is supposed to be a sit back, relax type of video. So, yeah, let's just sit back, relax, and just kind of talk about some movies. If you want to see more videos, please remember to like, subscribe, and notifications for more. And let us begin. First off, we have the Men in Black trilogy. So this is, for me, the Men in Black have always been a pretty big deal to me. When I was younger, I'd say more. When I got older, not as much. But still, I have the whole trilogy on Blu-ray, so can't really complain about that. Next one we have the Kung Fu Panda trilogy. Once again, another super underrated trilogy. One of the more better animated trilogies, probably like right behind How to Train Your Dragon as terms of how good it is. And yeah, I'd say the first two are pretty good. I think I like the second one even better than the first one, and the third one was pretty good too. It wasn't as good as the other two, but I liked it. I think it did a good job of what it had. All right, next one we have Paul Blart Mall Cop. This is a pretty good underrated comedy, I think. There's not much more I can say about that. I always liked it, so it is what it is. Next one we have Will Smith's I Am Legend. So this is one of those movies that were really like a sleeper hit. Like, it kind of just came out of nowhere. No one was really talking about it, and then boom, one day it was here. And it was a pretty big deal because at the time, we never really saw zombie movies like it. So it was definitely always something that I always thought was like a really cool, unique film. The only zombie movies we had at the time were like Resident Evil. And those, you can't really count those as zombie movies. You can count the first two as zombie movies, but then they get like a little too crazy later on. All right, next one we have Avengers Endgame, The Steel Case. So this is one of the greatest movies that ever existed. It is a cap off of like very important things that happened in the universe. So I'm just going to put it right there because it's going to go further on. I'm going to see if I can try to keep these in alphabetical order as I put them up here. The reason why I'm actually moving these Blu-rays in right now is because I had them all downstairs in the living room, but now that my daughter's getting bigger, she's getting into them and she's breaking them and throwing the discs around. So I had to stop that. So next one, Team America World Police. Honestly, this movie, it's so good. It's not for younger kids, of course, but it's still a great movie. All right, next one we have Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven. So this movie, I haven't actually seen it for a long time, but it's a really good film. I mean, I wouldn't say it's as good as like, Troy, but it's still really good. So I gotta put this up here. All right, next one we have X-Men Days of Future Past. So this is probably my favorite X-Men movie, I think, out of all of them. Maybe Logan I'd actually put above this one, but this is probably like the second best X-Men movie we have. This is definitely going to be all the way down here, so I'm just going to put it down there. Next one we have Immortals. This is with Henry Cavill Henry Cavill before he became Superman. It's underrated, I'd say. I don't think it's nearly as good as some of the other stuff like around it. Like, people were kind of like saying it was like the new 300, and I wouldn't put it up there. It's not as good as 300, but I think it's decent enough, so it is what it is. Next one of the best comedies, Superbad. This is probably one of the best comedies of like my era. If you haven't seen it, and of course you're of age, you have to. I'd say at least be PG, at least be 13 if you're gonna watch it. I watched this back when I was 13. It's rated R, but if you understand concepts of a movie you're watching, it doesn't matter your age. There are some limitations to that, though, of course. Thor, the first movie. Now, I actually have all the Marvel movies on Blu-ray together, so while Thor would technically be a T, I'm going to put it under M with Marvel, and that's going to go with the Avengers here, too. So I'm going to leave it up there with the other Avengers. We have Ted 1 and 2. So I'm actually surprised there isn't a Ted 3 yet. I think that they have it in production, or it's in, like, the idea of production, I guess you could say. But I think it's all right. I always think these comedies are good. The first one's really good. The second one's fine. So I don't necessarily need a third one, but if they do make a third one, that'd be pretty cool. Like I said, this is another one of those ones that if you can understand, the jokes and you're mature enough to understand it, then there's no problem. doesn't matter your age, you could watch that film. All right, next one, the Transformers collection. For those of you who didn't know, this is actually like one of my favorite movie franchises when I was younger. It's kind of fallen off, which is understandable because, you know, the films aren't as good as they once were. And I actually, Bumblebee I heard was pretty good. I haven't seen that yet, but I do have it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess people say they get worse with as they go on. I thought the third movie was probably the best out of the entire franchise for me, anyways. I haven't seen Bumblebee yet. Like I said, maybe they'll change after that. But I think it's pretty good for what they are. You know, they're just like mindless action movies. I have fun with them, so I can't really complain about it. Next one. This Is the End. Another comedy. Another Seth Rogen comedy. It's just good. If you haven't seen it, see it. Okay, so this is my Jurassic World Steelbook collection. Let's open it up quick. It's actually got all the different Jurassic World films in there. I think they're all in Blu-ray 4K. Yeah. So, extra sharp pixely. I actually got this bad boy for like 20 bucks. I think I paid like 15 bucks for this actually at one of my local game traders. And what game traders is for us is it's like if an independent person wanted to make their own GameStop, that's what it is. But they also have Blu-rays and stuff there. So you sell your used Blu-rays and stuff. And someone must have sold this, didn't want it anymore, so I took it. So I have all 5 movies on the collection. And the next one is coming out. So it's going to be pretty good. Next one we have the Steelbook of Van Helsing. This is a very underrated film. I actually hear people talk crap about this film. I remember when I was younger, I loved this thing. And not just because it's Hugh Jackman. I love Hugh Jackman. I still love Hugh Jackman. But like this movie itself was always so underrated, and I don't know why. I think it's a fun, just like sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride type of film. So I never understood why people didn't like it. Next one, Captain America: The First Avenger, and my daughter ripped the back of this plastic. Nice. Anyway, so Captain America: The First Avenger, really good film. Even the bad Marvel movies, MCU movies, aren't bad. So, you know, I recommend them. So this one is Wonder Woman. We have, this is the new Wonder Woman. Very underrated. Just kind of, well, I shouldn't say underrated. I mean, like, it came out of nowhere. It was very, people were just like, oh, the DC universe sucks. And then this movie came out and they said, oh, the movies can actually be good. That's interesting. And I think it did girl power without, like, overdoing girl power like some movies tend to do. So, I respect when movies can do that. Because, yes, we get it. Like, women are awesome. We love women. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's one thing to be like, yeah, girls are awesome. But it's nothing to be like, yo, girls are the best. They're so cool. You know, we're in your face. So, you know, that's not right. That's almost attacking women more than it is to support them that much. So, just don't do that. Next, we have Observe and Report. This is kind of like PG-13 Paul Blart. It kind of came out like around the same time. This was a Seth Rogen comedy before Seth Rogen really became a massive name. So, good movie, good comedy. Like I said, a rated R version of Paul Blart. So if you watch Paul Blart, you like that, you'll probably like this one too. But you know, they're saying they're dropping F-bombs in that movie. So, all right, now here we go. Probably the best comedy I think I've ever seen. The best comedy my entire life that I can think of. Step Brothers. The movie is perfection with comedy, in my opinion. It's just so good. If you have not seen it, see it. I think it's good not just for if you're like an adult, but also for like teenagers, maybe not young kids, but like preteens. This came out when I was like a preteenish, and ever since then it's been like my favorite comedy. I don't think there's another comedy. This might actually be my favorite comedy of all time. Next one we have Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. So this is another one that I saw and I was like, oh, that looks stupid. That looks so dumb. And then I actually watched it, and it was a pleasant surprise. It's a good comedy. I mean, there's not much to it. It's not like super complex. There's not like this, it's not going to be anyone's favorite comedy, but it's very good for what it is. And good actors, good characters. So, some people really have a thing for Anna Kendrick and Zac Efron. So if you're a guy who has a thing for Anna Kendrick, you're good to go. If you're a girl who has a thing for Zac Efron, you're good to go. And if you're, vice versa. Avengers Endgame. Or Avengers Infinity War, I mean. So yeah, this is another one of those movies that is just so good. When I first saw it, I actually was kind of taken back from it because it didn't feel like an Avengers movie to me. And the reason for that is because the main character is Thanos. This is Thanos' movie. You know, that's ultimately what this is. You know, these characters are all part of Thanos' story. So it's kind of interesting that like they took a villain and they made like a whole new hero. Well, our hero of the film was the villain, kind of. So that's actually pretty cool. So next we have Miss March. So Miss March is one of those like American Pie knockoff type of movies. But while American Pie knockoff movies, well, after American Pie 1, I'd say. After American Pie 1, you got like all the other ones like, you know, Band Camp and Beta House. You know, they're all just kind of like wacky teen comedies. You know, they're not meant to be taken seriously. This one is the exact same way. But I would say that this is still funny. The jokes don't land as well as they used to when I was younger. But if you're a preteen, check this one out. You might like it. And even though the name is Miss March, it's actually not as like sexual as you might think. We have Doctor Strange, and his Blu-ray popped out. Oop. Okay. We got Doctor Strange here, so that's cool. Pretty good film. Me personally, I'm not like a massive fan of Doctor Strange. I think he's a better ensemble character like Hulk. Like, he works better if he has someone else, another hero there to kind of, like, work with him. But, I mean, I think it's okay. For an origin film, it does what it's got to do. Next one, we have our still case of World War Z. This is another film, for me, I wasn't necessarily in love with. But I can't say I don't like it. It's weird. I don't really know how to explain it. Because I do like it, but it doesn't have to exist either. So I don't know how to explain it. But this is a steelbook. Pretty cool. The Heat. Now this is like your girl comedy type of thing. Now just because I say girl comedy doesn't mean that it's not good for guys. Like there's one of the comedies called Mean Girls. It's specifically meant for girls, of course, but it's a really good comedy even for guys. So this is one of those ones that's like that. So this is meant for you ladies, but guys can really have a fun time with it too. So that's what I'd recommend. And I'm not just saying it's for ladies because, you know, the main characters in the film are females. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, like, the jokes they make are like feminine jokes that only, you know, girls get sometimes. You know, not all of them, but you can tell when they pander more to a certain audience. We have Wild Hogs. Now, I went to go see this like back in like 2008 or 7 with my dad, and my dad he rides motorcycle and stuff, so he was pretty excited about this. He loves Tim Allen. And we went to go check it out, and it was a really good comedy. I think it still holds up for the most part. I don't think it's necessarily as good as it used to be, but there are some moments and that's a little rough. But I think overall, it's still a really good film. So if you guys like want a nice family comedy that's still like edgy, this is the type of film for you. A lot of these comedies that I'm showing are kind of not for kids, you know. But when it comes down to it, like Wild Hogs, you could watch, you know, you could watch that with your kid. Now, probably one of the best cartoons I remember as a kid and super underrated. You guys probably don't even know about it. We're Back. Now, this is actually like an animated film from, my gosh, like 95, 94. I don't know, but I grew up with this film, and this movie has one of the most powerful messages I've ever had, or I've ever seen in any kid's film. And it's just like, I can't really describe it, you know, like I remember this message even back when I was a kid. And just definitely check it out. If you have a kid who likes dinosaurs, and this Blu-ray I think was like $5, you know, it's not expensive at all. You can get it on eBay real cheap. If you have a kid who loves dinosaurs, when I was a kid, I loved dinosaurs. I mean, I still love dinosaurs, but you know, when I was a kid, I loved dinosaurs. That was like my favorite topic to talk about, especially T-Rex. And the main character is a T-Rex, so of course, that was that. If you have a kid who likes animated features and wants to learn some good lessons, that is a great film for that, honestly. So, yeah. Next one. Okay, so this one is like your stoner comedy pack. I got this one real cheap, I think on eBay for like $8 or something like that, but it's got the whole Harold and Kumar trilogy, which is the actual reason I bought it. And then there's Beer Fest, which Beer Fest is a pretty good comedy too. But, you know, the Harold and Kumars, those are like your your prime stoner comedies. They're kind of like your new, I guess you could call them the new Cheech and Chong, even though they're not necessarily that. But older folks, you know who Cheech and Chong is. I guess you could count that. You could also, I guess you could count them like the Beavis and Buttheads, but their characters are different. I'd consider them more like Zack and Cody, but grown up. For those of you who remember Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, that's probably the best way I can describe this. Imagine if Zack and Cody were grown up. They weren't brothers. They were different ethnicities, and yeah, that's what this is. But it's a great trilogy though, and if you are a fan of like stoner comedies, American Pie type comedies, you're gonna like those films. We have The Hangover, the first one. So this is this was a breakout hit. I actually remember, I didn't see this in theaters, but I remember my sister, she actually had a friend of hers who was 18 sneak her in to watch this movie because it was such a big deal. Like everyone in school was talking about this film, and I didn't see it till it actually came out. But yeah, it's a good comedy. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like the greatest comedy. I think it might be overrated a little bit, but I think it was because it came out of nowhere and its premise was just so zangy, but also like everyone who is old enough to know how it is when you have like a rough night out, everyone knows exactly how that felt. And you know, it's just one of those things like imagine if it got that wacky. So it takes a already wacky premise, puts it in a real life perspective, and then it just kind of changes things up a little bit, but not too much. So it's still realistic, but it's a zany realistic, and I think that's what really people like. Happy Gilmore. There's not much to say about this. Adam Sandler at his best right here. So good. Definitely watch it if you like Adam Sandler and you want to see his good stuff. I actually think this is on Netflix, so definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it. I'm gonna guess all of you probably have seen it, but if you haven't, check it out. Okay, next one we have another awesome Adam Sandler film, Waterboy. I actually like this one more than I like the Happy Gilmore one. This one is more underrated compared to Happy Gilmore, but I think that personally I like this one more. Just another good comedy. Another comedy that you can kind of watch at all ages. It is subliminal. That one's a little bit more raunchy compared to Happy, but it's still good though. Next one, the Warcraft film. This film is interesting because I really like this film, but it did not do good at the box office. Like it pretty much killed the box office as far as video game movies go. And I thought it was fine. It wasn't great. I definitely think there were some elements that are missing. The issue is that they did a storyline that wasn't as interesting as some of the later storylines. I think if they would have replaced this story with like Warcraft 3 story with Arthas, they could have made a crazy movie, because that's like for those Star Wars fans watching this, which most of you probably are, that's like episode 3 but in medieval times. Like it would be crazy. So I'd definitely like to see that eventually brought to the big screen. So if they're going to do another one, I know if they were going to do another one, they'd probably do like a the second game. They'd turn that into a story, of course, so that would make more sense. And people might look at me and go, whoa, why do you have that? But honestly, I got the whole Twilight collection on here. Now here's the thing about Twilight, man. When I was younger, when I saw the first one, I thought it was like the trashiest thing ever. And then I saw the second one, and I was like, whoa, there's actually action in here. And I started realizing, and then eventually they go on and they actually get worse again, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much I found myself intrigued by the second film. Now that might have been because I went with my one girlfriend back in high school. She wasn't not my wife, but I had another girlfriend before her, and maybe I just had like a good memory or something like that. Maybe we had a good night afterwards. I'm not going to go into any further information, but whatever the case, that second movie always kind of stuck with me. I watched it recently though, and it definitely did lose quality. So maybe it was just the time it was just like a good moment or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, I found this at a yard sale for like $5, and so I was like, all 5 discs for $5, I'll buy it. You know, maybe one of these days I'll actually try to do like a review or something on these films, because a lot of people hated them. I was never a massive fan of them, but I couldn't say I hated them. So we'll see how that goes in the comments. When it comes down to it, I'm known for more controversial decisions compared to some other people. You know, when I actually decided to point out some of the flaws in The Empire Strikes Back instead of stroking its ego, people hated me for that. So, hey, that's the way it goes. So next one we have Tropic Thunder. This is another great comedy. It's a Ben Stiller comedy. It's got Robert Downey Jr. before he was like massive, and it's even got Jack Black. Another good comedy, more mature comedy, but it's a good movie. I definitely recommend it for those who just like a fun movie. Just kind of sit back, relax. But it's one of those comedies that you can still think about, but you don't have to think too hard. So that's cool. I like when movies can do that. All right, next one we have The Wolverine. So this is like my third favorite. Yeah, my third favorite X-Men movie. So Logan's definitely first, and then X-Men Days of Future Past, and this one. So this one's also kind of underrated in my opinion. I do think that if it was rated R, people would have really loved this film because there's a lot of elements that they could have introduced. But I think for what it was, I was actually pretty intrigued by this film, and I liked it. So it's definitely better than X-Men Origins, that's for sure. And I'd say it's probably my favorite movie right behind Days of Future Past. Yeah, but that might just be because Hugh Jackman's like the bomb, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I mean, I think we all love Hugh Jackman. I'd love to see him back in like the MCU, but I don't think he'll be back. Or if they do bring him back, he won't be Logan. He'll be another character or something. They'll do something along those lines. Next one, we have Black Panther. So this Marvel movie, this one destroyed the box office. I think this is actually like the the fourth most successful Marvel movie out of all of them. Insane. And it's got a good point. I mean, I'm not surprised why. I think overall it's kind of like The Lion King, except for with humans. And the villain is Michael B. Jordan's character, Killmonger. So good. I actually think like he makes it worth watching. And that when I say worth watching, I don't mean like the rest of the movie is bad except for him. Next one we have Iron Man 2. One of the weaker MCU movies, but after rewatching it recently, I actually found myself kind of enjoying it, mostly because instead of looking at it as one of the worst movies, I looked at it as, I'm going to see if I can entertain myself. I'm going to sit back and not think too much about it, and I think you do find more value when you stop thinking about dumb movies. So, I found value in it then, so I actually like the movie now. I don't love it, you know, but it is definitely better than Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is probably just as bad as The Incredible Hulk in my opinion. Like I said, I'm known for being controversial, so there you go. Next one we have Ant-Man. Pretty good origin story. Nothing super special about it, honestly. I think it's fine, but I'm not like in love with the film or the character. Next one, Treasure Planet. One of the most underrated Disney films of all time. This movie, you know how they're doing a bunch of live action films again, a bunch of like remakes. This is the movie that I heard they're actually thinking about doing, and this movie and Hercules, those are the two films that actually deserve this remake stuff. We didn't really need the Lion King remake. I don't think it was as bad as people said. I don't mind it. It's pretty much the exact same thing as the animated movies, but whatever. We don't need any other animated films that are with Disney. This is the one we need. Super underrated. If you have not seen it, watch it. It is probably one of my favorite animated Disney films ever. I'm not even kidding. You know, right behind Hercules, Tarzan, and like the animated Lion King, this is like my fourth favorite. It's so underrated. It actually bothers me how underrated this film is because it's so good. Next one, we have Will Smith's Hancock. So this one is like this was during that weird time, like in the mid 2000s when a bunch of different companies were just kind of throwing out their own superhero products and stuff. Before like the big MCU boom. So, you know, you had like Sky High, you had all these, you know, more kid-like ones, and then you had like an adult superhero film. And I think this came out like 2008-ish. And so it's about Will Smith pretty much being 2008. It's pretty much about Will Smith being like a superhero and not really knowing what he is. And you don't really get to find out much about who they are. They just kind of explain like who they thought they were, you know, where they came from, but they never really explain like what where these powers are actually from. They just kind of know where they are from, but they don't know where their powers are from. So I always kind of wanted a sequel to truly explore the more of that, as well as kind of introduce a new villain into the story, because there really isn't like a true villain in this film. I mean, there's like these three guys who are like, who don't like Hancock because they put him in jail and they cut off, and the one guy got his arm cut off, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they're just like normal humans. So I want to see Hancock have to go against a bigger, badder foe. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I always think like the Hancock series could have had a very good possible run if it would have continued, but I don't know. Next one, Hall Pass. This is like a more adult film. I think it's underrated. I wouldn't say very underrated because like I don't think it's like that great of a film, but I don't think people like talk about it enough. I had fun with it. The characters are pretty good, except for this dude's wife. She's just the worst. But the rest of the characters are fine. Okay, this one's another really good one that actually just came out. This one is the Godzilla King of All Monsters Blu-ray. Good film. I think this is the Godzilla movie we wanted from 2014 Godzilla. I always say this, but the Godzilla in 2014 was not necessarily a bad movie, but it was a bad Godzilla movie because there was barely any Godzilla. And they made up for it in this film. So I'm glad that they realized their issue and now they fixed it. Next one, Here Comes the Boom. So this is one of those, like, a kid comedy. Now, I shouldn't say kid comedy because it's for all ages, of course, but it's your Adam Sandler type of comedy. So all ages can enjoy this film. But I think it's fine. It's not necessarily like the greatest kid comedy, but I think it gets the job done. If you ever like have like a, your friends are over and there's nothing else to watch, pop this bad boy in. It's okay. This one is Trolls. Trolls was a very like sleeper surprise. When I saw this on Netflix the one day, I was like, this looks so dumb. But my wife and my daughter, they love this movie. I like this movie, but they love this movie. So hey, if you're looking for a good movie to give to like a girl in your life, this might actually be like the perfect movie because it really just gets you pepped up. Next one, Office Space. This is, I wouldn't say it's underrated, but not many people really talk about it, but it's one of those cult following type of films. Like when it first came out, no one really said anything about it, but as years have gone on, it's become so much more relatable and just the funny elements and stuff that happen in it. So it's a good comedy. I wouldn't say it's like great, but if you like comedy, this is a good comedy. So I would describe this type of comedy, it's more of like a bland comedy, but it's still good. So yeah, maybe I could describe that better, but that's the best way I can think of it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, like I said, I have the rest of my Marvel movies. They must be my other boxes over here. But yeah, good film. I actually think this one is better than the first one. I wasn't a massive fan of Guardians of the Galaxy until I actually watched this one. So I just think it's overall a better, more fun film. Mostly because it doesn't have to waste so much time trying to get us to know these characters, because we can just kind of sit back and relax and enjoy the ride with them now that they're all friends. So that's pretty cool. This one is Amy Schumer's Trainwreck. For me, I think that this was definitely one of those films that when I first saw it, I was like, I'm never going to watch that film. But then one day, I think me and my wife, we were at the beach with the family, and we're like, hey, let's pop on a movie. And we put it on because it was the only thing we had, I think, on Netflix or whatever. I think it had just come out on Netflix, and there was nothing else that anyone else wanted to watch, so we watched this. And I was pleasantly surprised. This movie actually does have some heart here and there. Usually Amy Schumer stuff, I'm not massively a fan of her. Not just because of like, I don't like her or whatever. It's not that. It's more just because her comedy really isn't that funny to me. But she does have a couple different gems here and there. And I think this movie itself, I consider one of her gems. So if you guys haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend that. Next one we have, Zack and Miri Make a Porno. So if you guys saw my part 1, I talked about how there's different types of comedies. Some are for kids, some aren't. Well, this is a movie that is not for kids. It's a funny movie. Definitely a funny Seth Rogen movie. but I wouldn't recommend it for if you want a family comedy. This isn't your pacifier. You know what I'm talking about. So don't watch it if you're a kid. But if you love just like some of the best type of comedic fun you're going to get out of a movie like this is one of the best ones. Next one we got Central Intelligence. So this is another one. I think we actually saw this one right after we watched Trainwreck. And this one was pretty good too. I remember seeing this and being like, oh, another Kevin Hart film. Yay. Or, oh, look, a Dwayne Johnson film. Yay. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean I don't like either one of them, because I do like them. It's just, they're the same characters in every single film all the movies that they're in. But this one is interesting because they actually do a good job of kind of representing the characters differently, in which we've never seen them before. So I definitely recommend it. It's a good comedy, good like buddy cop comedy. It's good. I actually was surprised by how good it was. When you go into a movie and you're expecting crap and you find out it's actually pleasantly surprised, that's like one of the best parts of watching movies. Now, one of the worst parts is when you go into a movie expecting it to be great and it turns out to be garbage. That beats you up inside. Okay, next one. So this one is Captain America Civil War. One of the best MCU movies. When this first came out, I wasn't 100% sold on it just because of like the different type of pace it was going with. But now that all the rest of the movies are out, this movie is definitely like one of the most solid staples out of them. I don't think it's as good as Winter Soldier. I still think Winter Soldier is the best MCU movie, if not the best, definitely in the top 5. So I'd consider it better than this one. Still a good movie, just not as good. To me anyways. So good film, and it's going to go up there with the rest of my Marvel movies. By the way, if you haven't seen part 1 and you're kind of wondering where to see part 1, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. You could probably figure that's where it would be. You probably already seen it if you're watching this, but it is what it is. So this one is Jaws 2, 3, and 4. So the reason why I have Jaws 2, 3, and 4 on a separate Blu-ray is because I can't get the full collection on one Blu-ray. I don't exactly know why that is. I don't know if a different company owns 2, 3, and 4 on Blu-ray. But yeah, you can't get it. In fact, it's a over-the-seas edition. So I pretty much wanted 2. And you can't get 2 by itself. Or no, I know what it was. I like the first Jaws is amazing. The second Jaws is adequate. So, and the third and fourth are just trash. So I wanted to go buy Jaws 2. Well, I think where I was going online, it might have been Amazon. At the time, they had the 3-movie collection for cheaper than just Jaws 2 by itself. So I figured I might as well just buy the full collection. So that's how I got these. Not necessarily because I wanted them, but I mean, I wanted Jaws 2, and that's, you get what you get. The reason why I'm really doing these videos, guys, is mostly because I'm trying to put all these in alphabetical order, and I still wanted to do a video on my Blu-ray collection because I told you guys about it in the past. I had a bunch of requests to do the video on it. So I'm doing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm going to alphabetize my collection while also doing a video. So that's why that is the reason for that. Okay, so here we go. We have the Logan Steelbook. So I mentioned this earlier in my part 1 video, but the Logan is definitely probably the best X-Men movie out of my opinion. It's just a cool Steelbook. Just that with the movie inside. Nothing really super special about it, but I love Steelbooks. Something about Steelbooks are just so nice. It just feels so pristine. I don't know. But I think it's pretty cool. Like I said, good movie. If you like the X-Men movies, this is definitely one of the best of them. Next one we have Chronicle. So this is one of those sleeper hit movies that I feel like doesn't get enough attention. This movie is so much more than just like your standard like superhero origin movie. It has something special about it. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I think it came out like 2012, yeah. So this came out back in 2012, and I think it still holds up. A lot of the special effects are still really good. Some aren't as good, but it's a really good, interesting take on like superheroes. I just kind of wish they would go into a further backstory like they were going to do with Chronicle 2, but apparently Chronicle 2 got canceled, so that's the way it goes. Hey, maybe one day someone will pick it up and keep going with it. Next one, we have the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. So this trilogy, I mentioned this in my part 1 video, like I mentioned something earlier. But this is probably one of the best animated trilogies we have gotten ever. And out of all different movies, off the top of my head, of course, I might find one later. An animated trilogy, this is probably the most solid out of all of them. Because the first movie is really good, the second movie is really, really good, and the third movie is like good too. It's not as good as the second movie. I still think the second film of the trilogy is the best. It's kind of like the Kung Fu Panda movies. I think the second film is better as well. But it's overall, it's a very solid package, and it really makes you like, it shows the passing of time. It makes you feel, and I think that's one of the most impressive things that these movies can do is they actually make you feel. So How to Train Your Dragon, definitely a good film, and I am a fan of that. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. So this movie is a good comedy. It's pretty much just like a funny zombie flick. There's nothing really special about it, I'd say, but it's funny. And, if you like your funny films, this is perfect for you. So, it's pretty much about kids in high school who one day, they're Boy Scouts, and they go out in the woods, and they come back, and they find out that zombies took over the world, and so they're pretty much just trying to survive. So that's the basis of the story, and I think overall it's pretty good. I have Dinner for Schmucks. This is one of Steve Carell's best movies, in my opinion. I think there are some movies that he does better in, of course. 40-Year-Old Virgin, probably his best role, in my opinion, besides Michael Scott, of course. TV show The Office all the way is Steve Carell's thing. That's not even a question. But Dinner for Schmucks, definitely one of the better movies that he's done, and it's very funny. Next one. Okay, we got The Breakfast Club. So this is also another one of those films that when it came out, people actually didn't really care for it, but over time, the cult following made it massive. So I'm sure you've probably already watched The Breakfast Club. If you haven't, you're gonna probably see it soon because this movie is one of like the legends in like teenage high school movies. Without this movie, we probably wouldn't have a lot of good ones, especially like 10 Things I Hate About You. Like that's another really good one. That one came out, of course, way after this one, but this one was kind of like one of the very first ones to really just hit home and really make teenagers' problems like real. And that's something you don't really get in a lot of movies. You get like the fake teenage problems, and it was interesting to show those different dynamics because usually TV shows strayed away. TV shows and movies, so they strayed away from like the more controversial stuff, and Breakfast Club just stared right in the face and they told how it was. So it's definitely something I would recommend, especially for those of you who might be, let's say you're feeling like you're a little rough in school, or you're feeling like an outcast. The truth is, everyone feels like an outcast. Even the coolest kid in your school feels like an outcast somewhere. So that's just how it is. Next one, Hercules. So this is the Hercules that came out in 2015? I don't know. Whatever the case, I was actually at my local Game Traders. Yeah, 2014. I was at my local Game Traders, and they had this for like $4, maybe less than that. So I had to pick it up. Still case, like I said, I'm a massive fan of still cases, so that had to get picked up. I actually like the film, though. When it comes down to it, I don't think it's necessarily the best Hercules. Definitely the animated Hercules from Disney. That one's definitely better than this film. But for what it is, I think it's good. It kind of throws you for a loop, and it challenges the legend that is Hercules. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. I mean, it's not the best film in the world, but it's entertaining. And, if you like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, being all beefed up and hardcore, that's the movie for you. So this is the original Mummy trilogy. Oh, it's the Ultimate Collection. So that means it comes with, we have the Mummy, we have the Mummy 2, we have the Mummy 3, and then we have the Scorpion King. I don't know if I can get these out without breaking them. Okay, so yeah, I got the Mummy, Mummy 1, Mummy 1, the Mummy 2, the Mummy 3, and the Scorpion King. So that's what I got in here. And then a special editions disc. So, guys, the new Mummy that came out, trash. It's so bad. But this is the original Mummy, and this is a good collection, still book. I definitely recommend if you are a hardcore fan of like the older mummies and you're looking for like a way to kind of bring them back to your life. I think they might be on Disney Plus right now or Netflix. I don't remember exactly what they're on, but if they aren't, this edition's pretty cool, and it's only like $10 on Amazon or like $15 on Amazon. So I definitely recommend that if you are a fan of that. If you're not a fan, don't don't worry about it then. You're gonna see as time goes on, all of these movies here are probably gonna get pushed onto this side because I have a lot of Blu-rays, guys. I'm not kidding when I say that. We're not even halfway done with this box. So next one we have Paul, the unrated version. So Paul was one of those sleeper hits too. They kind of came out of nowhere. After Shaun of the Dead, these guys were pretty big deal. They released 2 more movies. One was called, I think, Cop Out, and the other one was like The End of the World or something like that. I didn't actually watch those 2 films. I heard they were kind of mediocre to Shaun of the Dead. I heard they were fine, but they weren't as good as Shaun of the Dead. But Paul definitely is, so I recommend this. Just a good, fun film. And that's all I can really say about it. It's not necessarily the best movie in the world. There's definitely some issues as far as narrative goes, but it's a fun film. In the end of the day, guys, every single one of these movies is good. You know, I wouldn't have it if it wasn't good. We have A Million Ways to Die in the West. This was one of those like sneak attack films as well. This is from Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, as well as the creator of Ted. Overall, it was a fun film. It's not like the best comedy. There's nothing that's going to be... It's not like a landscape-changing comedy. It's more of just kind of like you sit back and enjoy yourself type of movie. So, it's fun. It's not great, but it's fun. So, next one we have the Dark Knight trilogy. This is one of the... still one of the best superhero trilogies we have, up there with the original Sam Raimi trilogy, Captain America trilogy. Just overall so good. Not much I have to say. I'm sure you guys already know all this stuff anyways, so I don't like to say it. But it's the overall collection. This is like the premium version. It's not like a steel case or anything. It's just a sleeve. There's the actual version in there. But yeah, I think this thing cost me like $15 one day on an Amazon sale for like Black Friday. Good deal though. I always thought it was a good deal. I mean, I'm always a massive fan of The Dark Knight. Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises is fine, but I didn't buy this for them. I bought this for The Dark Knight, honestly. Heath Ledger, my favorite actor ever, by the way, if you guys don't know. He is my favorite actor of all time. Rest in peace. But I was a fan of his even before he was the Joker, by the way. But this film was his swan song, pretty much. He came out with another movie too, but this was his swan song. This was the movie that made him, that transformed him from being just like being as like another A-list actor to being like an S-tier actor. It took him into a whole nother level. Creed 2. Creed 2 is the sequel to Creed 1, obviously. And Creed 1 was kind of like the soft reboot of the Rocky franchise. And I think that this film does a really good job of doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to continue the legacy of Adonis Creed, who is the son of Apollo Creed. And so, first movie was really good. And I think this movie is, I would say it feels more like a Rocky film, but in some ways it does kind of fall short from Creed 1. I think it's because Creed 1 felt like it had more heart behind it. This one felt like a little bit more Hollywood, but I mean, they're both really good movies, so I can't really complain about that. Next one, we have Mel Gibson's Braveheart on 4K UHD. I actually didn't realize I got the 4K version. Did I have the 4K version? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah, so I have Braveheart in 4K. That's cool. He's cool. I don't know. The movie itself, you know, if you liked your old-timey action movies, William Wallace telling the historical epics, this is one of those ones. Overall, great movie. Can't really say much anymore about it. Yeah, just a good movie. It's not really historically accurate. If you're looking for a more historically accurate film, you're not really gonna want this one, but overall, it's a legend. It's a, I wouldn't say legendary film, but it's a very good film. And of course, Mel Gibson. At this point in time, he was the bomb. He got a little rougher later on. All right, well, I was gonna say we're almost done, but we're probably like only 30% in. There's a lot more Blu-rays left. Okay, so let us continue with this. We have Kick-Ass 2. A lot of people didn't like this sequel. I liked the first movie a lot. It was really good. But this movie was also, it had something about it that I think people kind of just forget about how awesome it is. Yes, the first movie is better than this movie, but this movie is still good. I never really understood the criticism behind it. I thought it was perfectly fine the way it was. I guess I could understand the issue with the kiss at the very end between the two main leads. Spoiler, by the way. But I don't know. I don't really think it was that big of a deal. I think people made it a bigger deal than it actually was. So, overall, I like the movie. Next one, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. This was another movie that when I saw it was coming out, I was like, oh my gosh, Hollywood ran out of ideas. And while, yes, they did run out of ideas, I think that they did a good job with this film. This film is fun. Not perfect, but overall, it is a very fun film, so I can't really complain about it. Okay, so this is the original Jumanji. Great movie. I'm sure you've seen it already. Special effects don't exactly hold up as well as they once did, but when I was younger, they blew me away. My brains were just, you know, it's crazy awesome. So they were never as good as Jurassic Park, of course, but they were close. You could tell that they were getting there. So I gotta give it props for that. Next one, Man of Steel. Another movie that I feel like gets a lot more hate than it actually deserves. It actually is probably one of my favorite movies out of the DCEU. It's not nearly as good as the Marvel films, but I think a lot of people gave this film hate at first because there's too much damage in it. But I never understood that argument because it's Superman. He should be facing foes who are blowing up cities. I mean, that's what he does. So I know this movie gets hate sometimes, but I just think people need to look at the perspective of the movie and realize that that's what Superman's supposed to do. He's supposed to be dealing with foes that are stronger than him, and he's already super strong. So if he deals with foes who are necessarily weaker, you know, you got like Lex Luthor, who is smarter than him at least, can use like his brains to beat him. Not every character is like that, so there has to be a bronze fighter to be able to face off with him, and that's why he normally just has foes that can face him. Because if you put someone against him who isn't strong enough, where's the conflict? I never understood the argument behind that. Okay, next one is 22 Jump Street, guys. It's a great sequel. I think that this is one of those movies, sequels, comedies that does a great job of not only paying homage to the first film, but also kind of raising it up. Because this movie is really good, and the first movie is really good, but I guess if I had to pick between the two of them, I would say that this movie is probably just a little bit better, but that's because the chemistry between the characters is more fleshed out. The writers behind the story and like the actual script, they know what they're doing. You know, they have the characters set up. They can kind of have more fun. They don't have to worry about the introductory stuff. And theoretically, that's why sequels should be better than the original films, is because the characters are already established. You don't have to worry about that anymore. But that's not always the case, of course. Okay, next one. Another movie I just never understood the hate for. Batman v Superman. I actually thought this movie was fine. People really hate this film. And I had a good time watching it. I don't exactly know why people hated it. I remember seeing stuff online, people talking about this was like the worst movie they ever saw. And I don't get it. I think it was fun. I liked it. Is it great? No. But is it terrible? No. It's a fine film. I don't think it's as good as Man of Steel, but I think it's still fine enough. So I would still watch it on my binges. 17 again. So this was kind of marketed as one of those girl comedies. And the truth is, I think it's good. It's kind of like, I would give it kind of like the sense of a Mean Girls feel. It's a comedy meant for teenagers, but adults can enjoy it. It's a comedy more meant for, I should say, teenage girls, because Zac Efron, of course. But everyone can enjoy it because the story is engaging and fun. So I think it's a little underrated, but that's just me, of course. Okay, Disney's a live-action Jungle Book. Good movie. I actually like this one more than the original animated one. Not that the animated one is bad. It's just this one's really good. You can tell the people behind it, Jon Favreau, the director, he cared. He cared about what he was making, and that's the most important part of when you remake films. You have to hire people who actually care about what they like. I know I mentioned this in my previous video, But the new Lion King gets a lot of hate because, you know, it feels like a cash grab, and it kind of is like a cash grab, but the whole thing about it was the exact same thing as the animated movies. At least, like, movies like Aladdin added something new into it. They added these new dynamics that kind of made the story different. But the Lion King is a pretty set in stone story, so there's not much you can kind of change. So I think that's why a lot of people don't like The Lion King, was because it was just a live action. I shouldn't even say live action. It was a realistic CGI amalgamation of the same film as the animated version, so it didn't necessarily need to exist. That's what made people mad. So next one, The Blind Side. This is a movie that I think is pretty inspirational. I don't necessarily think it's. I heard that it's very, very not the truth. Like, there's a lot of elements in this. Like, for example, in this film, the main character, the big boy, he says that he doesn't know how to play football, but in real life, the actual player did. Like, he knew how to play football since he was, like, in diapers. But, I mean, they got to change stuff up to make him seem more sadder, more down. So then when he starts to rise and become better things happen for him. So I understand that. From a story element, you got to kind of do that. Even when you're based off of a true story, sometimes you got to have to, you know, bend the truth to really make a story kind of pop more. So I understand where they might have came from that. Next one, another movie that I think gets way more hate than it deserves, Captain Marvel. I'm going to be honest. I like this movie. I understand what people are saying about Brie Larson. You don't like Brie Larson, that's okay. I don't really care. End of the day, I like this film. Hate me if you want. Like I said in my part one, I have controversial opinions sometimes. I get that. But that's the way it is. Next one, Incredible Hulk. Probably one of the worst MCU movies out of them. But even if this one and Iron Man 3 are probably like the worst movies out of the MCU, but I gotta be honest, even though they're the worst movies out of the MCU, this is still a decent enough movie to watch. So if you guys like the MCU, you've probably already seen it, but I think it's fine. Alright, next one we have John Tucker Must Die. So this is another one of those like teen comedies that were kind of shown towards girls, kind of like for 17 Again or Mean Girls. But I think this is a pretty fun comedy. It does a good job. I don't necessarily think it does as good of a job as Mean Girls or 17 Again as appealing to guys, but I think it's fine. So, you know, this is one of those movies where you get with your girlfriends all together at a sleepover and you watch it and you hate on your ex-boyfriends and you talk about all the cute guys, and that's what this type of movie is for. But it's got its moments for guys too, so it is what it is. I think the best thing that a movie can do is when it can appeal to not just men or women, it can appeal to everyone. Now, of course, most movies are going to kind of appeal to one of the genders and then allow the other one to possibly bleed in, but sometimes movies just kind of go straight for guys or they go straight for girls. So it's good to be able to appeal to both genders if you can. Okay, so this one, my pride and joy. This is the Family Guy trilogy, the Family Guy Star Wars trilogy. I got all of them for, as you can see, $7.99 at my Game Traders. Great deal. The Blu-ray collection. I can't really, there's not much more to say about it. It's just so good. Your Highness, another funny comedy. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's got Padme. She's really good looking in this film, and you get to see her butt. So you guys already probably left the video. Go check this out. Okay, original Jaws. I don't have to say anything. Jaws is just almost perfection of a movie. Next one, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it's a little better than the first Ant-Man, but it's not necessarily like a top tier Marvel movie. It's still kind of near the bottom tier. I would even maybe put it somewhere like a little bit ahead of Iron Man 3. Maybe a little bit ahead, maybe a little behind Doctor Strange kind of thing, but I think it's fun. And then we come to the first Avengers film, guys. This film, so good. This movie pretty much, I would say, kind of started off the whole craze of, you know, superheroes that the collections of superheroes that we've seen so far. Yeah, great movie. Can't really complain about it, honestly. Next one we have Cloverfield. So this is one of those movies that kind of came out of nowhere. It was kind of like marketed as a American Godzilla type of film, and I think it's decent. I don't necessarily think it's a good movie. I think it was decent enough for the way it was filmed, though. It was kind of very interesting to watch because of how it was filmed, because at the time we never really saw a movie film like this, at least of the way that it was done. So I definitely recommend that. Okay, next one we have A League of Their Own. This is a movie that's older, but I definitely recommend it. It's got Tom Hanks, it's got Madonna, and it's got Gina Davis in it. Really solid cast. Good story about two sisters, you know, kind of just following their dreams and trying to do the best that they can in life. And overall, just a really good story. I think it's during World War II as well. It covers when, back in 1943 during World War II, a lot of the baseball players actually got drafted. So they actually brought a bunch of women in to entertain people until the men got back. And that's what this story is about. So that's pretty cool. That's actually like, it's hinting towards, you know, towards, it's kind of like a historical film, I guess you could say, because it's based off a true story. Now, when I say based off a true story, it's based off of true events, but the story itself is made up. Okay, another Adam Sandler film. I think this is probably one of Adam Sandler's like last good films. I know people don't necessarily like his stuff like this. I would say Click and this film are like some of his last good ones. And then you had a span of time where they just got like rough. They're still fine. They're just not nearly as good as they used to be. So yeah, definitely recommend it. Oh, and there is a train going. I apologize for that. Okay, moving on to our next one, we have the Steelbook version of the 2005 Peter Jackson King Kong. Guys, this is one of actually my favorite movies when I was a kid. I was always like a Jurassic Park fan, so when they went to like a dinosaur island and there was also King Kong there, blew my mind. It was definitely a great film. But I think it kind of gets it doesn't get as much love as I feel like it should, though. I don't know why people would act that way around it. I don't know if maybe they're jealous of it. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't know like why it never really got the love it deserved, in my opinion. I mean, it made lots of money, but it feels like it was always kind of just like a second, like it was a second choice for people. I never really got that. I actually think it's better than Kong Skull Island, but that might just be me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off the half of this box, and then I'm going to just be done with this video, guys, because I'm actually getting a lot tired than I thought. I don't know if you can tell, I'm getting tired. So we got maybe like 20 more, we got like 15 more movies to go here. So let's just do this. Let's crank them out. Yes. Okay, so guys, you might have heard of this film series. It's called Indiana Jones. I hear it's okay, but no, I'm just kidding. So this is the complete adventure. So you get the first film, you get the second film, you get the third film, and of course you get the best out of them all, fourth film, and then bonus features. So yeah, the fourth film kind of drops the ball as far as this series goes, but I don't think it's necessarily as bad as people like to say. But then again, that might just be my opinion. Indiana Jones, I don't really need to explain it. You guys know it's good. I don't have to really explain anything else. On top of that, you know, the majority of you guys are probably Star Wars fans, and if you are Star Wars fans, that means you're probably Indiana Jones fans as well. So, don't need to really go into fuller detail. Next one, guys. One of my favorite franchises, besides like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, the Rocky franchise. The interesting thing was, I only saw my first Rocky film back in 2018, at the end of 2018. And ever since then, I've been hooked. They're just such solid films. I've done ranks on these movies before, and it's honestly, some movies are better than others. But when it comes down to it, overall, just this really solid saga. Rocky 5 gets a lot of hate, but I don't really understand the hate. I actually think it's fine. I think it is it's an obvious evolution of the character to go with what happens with it. So, I don't know. I think people just kind of hate on it a little too much. I know it's not necessarily, you know, the best film out of the series, but I definitely think it's more hate than it deserves. All right, next one we have Role Models. So this is another one of those comedies. I would say is more pandering towards, you know, younger teenage guys, but overall, it's a really good movie. I definitely recommend it. Um, there are better comedies, but it's one of those movies that, like, if you're just chilling at home, you got your friends over, looking for something funny to watch, you can pop that bad boy on. Okay, so this is actually one of my favorite standalone films, A Knight's Tale. Like I mentioned earlier about Heath Ledger being one of my favorite actors, this was the film that made me love him. 10 Things That I Hate About You, that made me like him. This movie made me love him. He just had something about him that he could carry an entire film. He could probably just stand there and just, do his normal charming, just be his normal charming self, and I would just still like the film. He just got something about him. He's just such an interesting and powerful figure, and he died way too young, honestly. But yeah, the film itself is just such a solid film. There's not really many movies that I could say are just are just solid standalone movies through and through. But A Knight's Tale is 100%. Next one, Drillbit Taylor, probably one of the least best comedies I have. It's funny, it gets the job done. It's not that great though, but it's fine. We have the Planet of the Apes trilogy. This is a really solid trilogy. I remember when they first announced this, I was like, they're making more of these, because if you don't know, this franchise has like 10 different movies in it from the past, and I thought that this was going to be like a continuation of those, but instead it acts more of like an origin, and it does a really interesting job of what it does. So we got Rise, Dawn, and War. Dawn is good, Rise is really good, and then Rise is good, War is really good, but Dawn is, that's the sweet spot, honestly. That the sequel, the second film in this trilogy is really, really good. Just overall, I really can't really go into details. Just if you haven't seen this trilogy, watch it, especially the second film. You can watch the second film without even watching the first or the third and just feel super into this world. It's just amazing. Next one, we have the Simpsons movie. It's a very good homage. It's a very good homage. Get it? That's so dumb. I'm sorry, guys. I'm tired. We have The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. This was kind of like when I was younger. I would consider this like Lord of the Rings light version. This was kind of like during that time when Lord of the Rings was destroying the box office, and everyone was kind of like, what are we going to do next? After Lord of the Rings was over, everyone was like, what movies should we do next? What series should we do next? And they just were like, oh, let's do Chronicles of Narnia, because it's similar to Lord of the Rings. And while it's not nearly as successful as Lord of the Rings, I think that it has its own type of flair to it. Like, I would describe Lord of the Rings as for like older kids. This was like the younger kids version. So that's why it's called Lord of the Rings Light. Still pretty solid film though. This is Napoleon Dynamite. This is one of those quirky comedies. So good. Can't really say much more about it. It's just good. Okay, next one we have We're the Millers. This is another really good comedy that's it follows this drug dealer who has to get money back to this guy, and so he does this big mission. He has to make a fake family, and overall it's a really good comedy. It's not for your younger folks, but I definitely would recommend it. We have the live-action Scooby-Doo duo. This thing was on sale on like Amazon for like $4, so I had to pick it up. These movies I grew up with. These aren't necessarily the Scooby-Doos that I grew up with. This isn't my Scooby-Doo, but I remember I was a kid when this came out, and the first one was really, really cool to me. Even though the CGI does not hold up at all, it was fun, so whatever. Next one we have Scott Pilgrim. This film is so underrated. This is kind of like Kick-Ass for me because it is a comic book movie, but it's so underrated. If you have not seen it, guys, watch it. This is actually a steelbook version. Extra stuff in the back. The Blu-ray inside. So, yeah, definitely a solid film that I think definitely doesn't get as much love as it deserves. For our next movie, we have Guardians of the Galaxy. Guys, I always get crap for this, but I think this movie is just, like, fine. I don't think it's great. I know a lot of people look at me and they go, what? Guardians of the Galaxy is so good. And here's the thing. I respect this film. I just think the second one is better, and I think that overall it's kind of like low to middle tier MCU movie for me. I don't know. Maybe I got to give it another chance. I actually haven't seen it for a while, so maybe I'm wrong. And maybe with now the Infinity Saga is done, maybe this film was going to actually be better for me. But right now, I think it's just kind of okay. So that's just the way it is. Like I said, I'm known for being pretty controversial. We have Avengers: Age of Ultron. Now this film gets way more hate than it deserves, guys. You know, this movie is good. It's not nearly as good as the first movie. I know that. I mean, it's not nearly as good as the first Avengers film. And I wouldn't even call it really better than, you know, the third or fourth Avengers film. But I think it's still like mid to top tier as far as the MCU movies go. Might just be me with all this stuff, but that's how I feel. So, gets more hate than it deserves. Shame on those who hate it. We have Liam Neeson's The Grey. This is kind of like Jaws if the shark was a wolf, was a pack of wolves, and that's what you got. That's this movie. It's a fun. I shouldn't really say fun movie, but it's like an entertaining film. You can sit back, relax, and watch this movie, and just kind of see how Liam Neeson's going to get himself out of the sticky situation he get into. So, definitely recommend this film if you like the type of like man versus beast theme, because that's exactly what this is. Okay, and last but definitely not least, the very best film of the MCU, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Captain America 2 is just such a solid film. Not only is it a good like superhero movie like thing, but it's also a very good like spy film by itself. So even if you aren't like a superhero fan, if you like action, if you like espionage, if you like just the extra, you know, like spy slash super soldier type stuff, I guess you could say, like from like Jason Bourne type of feel to it. This is a really solid movie. I think that's why it's considered one of the best movies, because it is, for me anyways, the best movie out of the MCU. So even if you don't have this at your number one like me, you have to have this in your top 5 at least. If you don't have this in your top 5, you probably have bad opinions. Now, of course, I'm kidding. It's okay if you have at least in your top 7. But if it's not in your top 7, then yeah, bad opinions. And we have Lord of the Rings trilogy. So this is actually the collector's edition you can get on Amazon. I don't know if it's still up there, but if it is, I'll leave a link. So as you can see, just overall, like the best edition of the Lord of the Rings you can get so far. Now they're only Blu-ray, they're not the UHD versions of Blu-rays. For me, that's okay. I actually prefer regular Blu-rays, but just because they are cheaper and you still get really nice high quality stuff. You just don't get the 4K versions, which are okay. I don't even know if they actually released 4K yet on these. I don't think they did. But overall, just look at this collection. Like they're matching. Like look at that. Like that is beautiful. It's all shiny and pretty. Probably one of my favorite parts of this collection is just because they all match. You know, I hate when I have a collection and all the movies, like the Blu-rays and stuff, they don't match. They don't look like they go together. I hate when collections do that. So when I can have an awesome collection like this that brings everything together and just, you know, makes it like one big pristine collection, this is the type of stuff that I love. The next movie is Thor: The Dark World. So a lot of people don't like this movie. I think that this movie is fine. I think it's actually, it might be, what do you think? So I know people don't like this movie. I know a lot of people love Ragnarok, and when I saw Ragnarok, I thought to myself, I don't know if I like it, but I've since come around to Ragnarok, and I think I like it more than this one now. But I still think this one gets a little too much hate. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I feel. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's not like the best Marvel movie, but I think it, like I said, it gets more hate than it deserves, at least in my opinion. All right, next one. This is the Lego Movie. So the Lego Movie one is probably one of those like old like solid movies that prove that like, hey, you can make movies about anything. And then they made the Emoji Movie and it was trash. You know what I mean? So Lego Movie, you can make this prove that you can make a movie about anything, but you also have to make sure it's good. You have to put people behind it who know what they're doing and know how to make good entertainment. So Lego Movie, good movie. And of course, everything is awesome. Still one of the best soundtracks, I think, out of any movie ever. Alright, next one we have the original Iron Man. So, Nothing to really say about this. One of the best MCU films, one of the best superhero movies to date, and the special effects still hold up. There are some that are kind of like, meh, but overall, I think it's still a great movie, and it's still in my top 5 favorite MCU movies. So yeah, we have Spider-Man: Far From Home. So if you guys saw Spider-Man: Far From Home, it's a pretty good movie. I think it's actually better than the first Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Homecoming. It's not like fantastic. There's no like twists in it that are gonna be that are gonna shock any Marvel fans. I was actually kind of hoping that the bad guy here, I was kind of hoping that he would end up being like a good guy, and that'd be like the twist. But he actually does end up being the bad guy, and it's like, I think it would have been cool to actually be like if Mysterio was actually supposed to be a good guy. I thought that would be cool, but we saw the whole change coming from a mile away. I think the only people who didn't see it coming were the people who aren't fans of the comics, and the majority of people going already knew about it. So it's kind of sucks, but like the film itself is good. It's just a shame that I feel like they could have did more with Mysterio, in my opinion, of course. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. All right, next one we have 21 Jump Street. Now, in my collections video 2, I think I had 22 Jump Street, and 22 Jump Street's a little better than this one, I think, but this one is still a great comedy. This is an awesome comedy duo. Not necessarily for kids, but I think it's very entertaining for what it is. So for our next one, we actually have a triple feature. So this actually has 300, it has Troy, and it has Alexander the Great story. All 3 movies are really good. I definitely say 300 is like amazing. Troy is awesome, and Alexander's alright. I don't necessarily love that one, but I think like this pack was a really good deal. These 2 movies, so good. Just great. So I have them all together, and I thought that would be easy to kind of get it. I think I got a pretty good deal on this, and if I can find the deal still, I'll leave that link in the description below as well. So like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm going to be leaving links to every single one of these Blu-rays, or I'm going to try. So if I miss a link that you are looking for, like I'm going to do like mostly the more like popular movies I'm going to put down in the links. If you see like a movie that I mentioned in this video that I forget to leave a link down below, just let me know in the comments and I'll look it up for you and I'll send you the link, and then you can help out the channel too, so I'd appreciate that. Alright, so now we have the Chronicles of Narnia 2. This is Prince Caspian. I think I saw this like once or twice. I know the first one I loved. The third one was okay, and I think I liked this one too, but it's been a while since I actually watched these movies. I'll probably have to sit down and just check them out again. But yeah, pretty solid film. I like it. I mean, it's not like I mentioned about Narnia in like my previous videos, is like Narnia is kind of like Lord of the Rings light. So I love Lord of the Rings. So of course, you know, Narnia is kind of up my alley. You know, and I was younger back then, so it was definitely like up my alley. For our next one, we have The Change Up. So this is another really good comedy with Ryan Reynolds and Jason Bateman. Jason Bateman is one of those actors that I don't know if I like him or not. Like, every role I ever see him in, I enjoy him in. I think he's really good at what he does, but I never like remember like, this guy is like the man, you know what I mean? So it's interesting. I don't know if that's just me, or maybe it is, I don't know. But Ryan Reynolds, he's of course the bomb. So it's a good comedy. It's about these 2 guys who they both envy each other's lives, and they want to switch bodies, and then they end up actually doing that. It's kind of like a Freaky Friday, and then they start to see like, oh, your life is so perfect, your life is so perfect, and then they realize, oh, actually, this life is more flawed for me, and it's definitely not meant for me. I want to go back to my own life, and then they do. And so yeah, it picks at the heartstrings. You know, it's a comedy that is able to like let you think. And I mentioned this in my previous Blu-ray collections, but there are different type of comedies. There's comedies you just sit back, relax, and just, you know, let the jokes fly. And then there are comedies that you kind of just actually absorb, and they can make you think. And I think this is one that actually does that. So it's actually pretty interesting. All right, next one we have Jackass 3 unrated. So not much to say about this. Jackass, they're the bomb. The 4th one's coming out soon, so can't wait to check that out. So that's all I have to say about that. All right, so this one is a interesting collection that I found on Amazon. This is the Man with No Name trilogy. It's also known as a Fistful of Dollars trilogy. In this trilogy, you get A Fistful of Dollars, which is a pretty good movie. You get For a Few Dollars More, which is a pretty good movie. And then you get one of the best films / westerns, probably the best western in my opinion, ever. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now, these films aren't like technically connected, so they're all made with the same director, and the character can be could be used at the same. Okay, so let me explain this a little bit. So the main character is Clint Eastwood's character. He doesn't have a name. Um, so the way the film suggests is that the films came out like this chronologically. So this came out first, came out second, came out third. But this is actually the first movie. This is the second movie. This is the third movie. So it's kind of like you're going back in time as you watch, but it's also not really connected at all. So it's interesting. It's if the character kind of transitioned into different universes that were all like different Western universes. It's a weird way to explain. You're not necessarily supposed to look at these films as a trilogy, but you can. So it's interesting. If you want to do more research on it, I definitely recommend it. If you're a Western fan and you have not seen The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, you need to see it right now. Go rent it, I'm sure. If you want to pick up this collection, like I said, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Definitely a very underrated trilogy, in my opinion. Or I shouldn't say underrated, but a lot of people don't even know that The Good, the Bad, the Ugly actually has 2 other films in its saga, but it also doesn't. So, it's interesting. We have Hot Tub Time Machine, the Ultimate Edition. Just another good comedy. It's not necessarily like... It's not going to blow your mind. You know, there are better comedies, but it is a fun comedy to kind of throw on if you're hanging out with your friends and you guys want to watch something. I definitely recommend this one. Alright, next one we have Creed 1. So I mentioned Creed 2, I think, in my part 1 episode of this Blu-ray collection. And, very solid film. It's definitely a cool return to form. If you are a fan of the Rocky franchise, you're going to love this film. I think it does a good job of kind of modernizing the idea of Rocky while also still paying homage to what it means and the ideals and the lessons that come from the Rocky film. So, like the Rocky movies, Creed 1, check it out. Okay, next one, I mentioned this earlier, Thor Ragnarok. Probably the best Thor. When I first saw it, I didn't like the fact that they kind of changed Thor's character altogether. But seeing how much it's impacted the future of the movies after this film, I think I prefer what they did with him. I just kind of wish there was more explanation to why he became more dumb. But it is what it is. Ultimately, though, it does help the overall franchise, and it gives Thor more of an identity instead of just like a stoic guy, you know. Now he's kind of like a lovable buffoon, you know. So, hey, it is what it is. But, good film. Like I said, there are no bad MCU films. They're just some rough ones. You know, that's just it. Okay, next one we have Land of the Lost. So this is a Will Ferrell film that is a comedy based on an old TV show from like a long time ago, back with like claymation animations. Very solid film though. It's definitely got a lot of awesome humor, and it does make you think here and there, but not like too hard. So good movie though. Definitely recommend it for those who are looking for a comedy. It's not necessarily family friendly, but you know, it's like a preteen type film, so you're okay with that. Or it can be for preteens. I'd say it's more for like older kids. You know, when I say older kids, I should say like teenagers, but preteens can enjoy it too and not get, you know, it's not that bad. There's no F-bombs being dropped or anything like that. I don't think there's any like, you know, drug use type of situations or anything like that. So it's a solid film. I definitely recommend it. All right, next one. Speaking of comedies, but this one definitely isn't for your children. This is Pineapple Express. Solid comedy, great stoner comedy, but it's not for younger viewers. Definitely not. But really, really funny. So if you're looking for a comedy and you're old enough to, you know, I guess you're supposed to be 18 to watch it or something like that, check it out. I'd say 15-year-olds could be able to watch this too, of course, but you have to be 18 because that's what this says, and that's how I am. So, but if you're 15 and you're mature enough to understand, you're okay. Anyways, okay, next one we have Bumblebee. So this is one of those films that I haven't actually watched yet. I watched all the rest of the Transformers movies, but I haven't watched this. I got this on sale one day on Amazon. I'll leave links to this movie, like I said, description below. Here it's good though. Here it's a good return to form. I hear it kind of fixes a lot of issues with the later Michael Bay films, but I haven't checked them out yet, so I'm gonna have to see how it goes. All right, next one we have Venom. You know, so for me, I think this is a good film. Well, I think this is a fine film. I was actually surprised Sony was able to release a fine film. There's definitely some issues with it. Some of the CGI is really ugly, but there are some good CGI moments too. The story is fine. I think ultimately the worst choice they made was making Tom Hardy as Venom. For me, I'm not a massive fan of Tom Hardy as an actor. I don't really think he's that talented. That might just be me. Not that I don't like him. You know, he's probably a solid dude, but I just don't think he's necessarily that talented of an actor to put in this position. I'm okay with him being like a villain, but to put him as a main character, I just don't know it yet. Maybe the next film will kind of change my mind, but for right now, I don't really see Tom Hardy as this character, especially considering, you know, Tom Hardy is a good tough guy, but he's not like a good like awkward guy, and that's kind of how Eddie Brock is seen in this film a little bit for me. So maybe they'll change it. Maybe they'll kind of fix it a little bit. But for right now, I'm not sold on him as Eddie Brock being Venom. All right, next one we have Little Man on Blu-ray. Another solid comedy. Not much to say about that. Just a funny Wayne's, you know, movie comedy. If you like white chicks, you're gonna love this film. It's the same makers who make it, and it's solid. It's a solid film. It's a solid comedy. Some of the CGI doesn't hold up as well, like when it comes to like him as a baby, but I think it looks fine. Okay, next one we have Warm Bodies. So this film is one of those movies that kind of came out of nowhere. It's one of those comedies. I guess it's not really a comedy. It's kind of like, I don't really know how to explain it. It really doesn't have a. It's kind of like Zombieland-ish, but it has more heart. And you're following the zombie, and the zombie's coming back to life, and the zombie's teaching other zombies to come back to life. So it's an interesting concept altogether, but it is weird too. But I mean, ultimately, it does have a really cool, like, overall story to it. So I'd recommend it for those people. I think it tries to be deeper than it actually is, but I like that it kind of throws a twist on the whole, you know, zombie experience that we see from movies and stuff like that. Kind of making, instead of the zombie being the antagonist, the zombie is our protagonist. So it's pretty interesting, actually. All right, next one, Semi-Pro. One of Will Ferrell's just great films. I mean, he's had better films, of course. This is on the level of Step Brothers or, you know, like Elf. It's not that great, but it's still really good. So, good comedy. Okay, next one we have Year One, Jack Black, Michael Cera. Good comedy. Not much more to say about it. Kind of a spoof on the 10,000 BC movie, but it's a good film altogether. I definitely recommend it. Good comedy. So you may have noticed that pretty much I've been saying I recommend every single one of these films, and like I said, because I own them, they're good movies. It's just some are better than others. So that's kind of what I'm saying. So while I say I recommend this movie to a lot of times, that's the reason why, because they're all good films, just some are better than others. Okay, so here we are at Kick-Ass. So I mentioned Kick-Ass 2 was a really good film. Kick-Ass 1 is better than Kick-Ass 2, but I do think that Kick-Ass 2 got more hate than it deserved. Whatever the case, Kick-Ass 1, solid film. Just a good time altogether, so recommend it. The best way to describe it is, if you like John Wick, you'll like Kick-Ass, because that's the kind of the same thing going on there. Okay, so we come to Iron Man 3. So this is definitely like the weakest out of the MCU movies in my opinion. I'd actually even put this behind Incredible Hulk. It's just not really, it doesn't feel like a Marvel movie to me. You know, like every movie kind of has its own feel. Like Star Wars movies have their own feel. You know, the MCU movies have their own feel. And this one feels like it was kind of a step back from the overall collection. While I appreciate the director trying to do something different, ultimately it was a step back for me as the character. I don't necessarily think it was really even a needed story, because there's not really much that happens in this film that changes in the future, because in the end of this film he says, I don't need the suit to be Iron Man, and in the next movie he's Iron Man anyways. So they kind of ignored everything that happened in this film anyways. So it's like, what the heck? By the way, you might hear my wife or my baby in the background. They're downstairs playing right now. So they get a little loud sometimes, so I apologize for that, but I'm not gonna stop them from having fun. So now we come to Liar Liar, one of Jim Carrey's best films. In this movie, has probably one of the best lines out of all films ever, and it has to do with him and this chick in the elevator, and she's got she's well endowed, right? And he's like, Mama, and it's genius. It's genius comedy right there. So there you go. Check that out if you like it. It touches the heart too. It's able to not only tell a funny story and keep you laughing, but it touches your heart. So that's the best part about comedies. If they can do that, they're solid. That's just how it goes. All right, next film we have Spider-Man Homecoming. Talked about Spider-Man Far From Home a little bit earlier. I think Far From Home was a little better than this one, but I do appreciate this one because it does feel more MCU-ish, and it's technically, while it's part of the MCU, it's still not owned by like Disney, and like it's not owned by the MCU, which is interesting. And I think it does a better job than Iron Man 3 of being an MCU film. So, good movie. There are better Spider-Mans though. Like, Spider-Man 2, the original Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi, still a better film than anything we've gotten so far. I think that's still the best Spider-Man movie. But this is still a solid contender if you want to consider, out of the newer Spider-Man movies, this is probably one of the best ones. And I say newer, I mean like including the Andrew Garfield ones, which aren't technically new anymore. But yeah, The Revenant. So this got Leonardo DiCaprio his first Oscar, and it's a good movie. I think it gets a little bit more praise than it deserves. I think it's cool. I appreciate what it is and what it tries to do, the story it's telling. I appreciate it. But I don't think it's that great of a film. People talk about this film like it is like God's gift to movies sometimes, and I'm just like, it's not that great, guys. Like, it's fun. It's entertaining. But it's not like that great. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but that's how I feel. Okay, next one we have the Austin Powers collection. Solid trilogy. Not really much to complain about. It's if you don't know who Austin Powers is, which I don't know how you wouldn't, but if you don't know who Austin Powers is, it's kind of like a spoof on James Bond, done really, really, really well. And it was done so well the first time that they made another one, and that was done so well they made another one. And there's actually some talk of a fourth one coming. I don't know if there necessarily needs to be a fourth one because this is such a solid trilogy altogether. But it's a good trilogy. I definitely recommend if you like funny comedies, if you like spoofs that are done right, this is it. This is the best trilogy, I think, for spoofs. Right now we come to another collection. We have the American Pie 4 discs quadrilogy. Yeah, that's a word. We can use that. And so, just overall, just really solid films. If you ever want to look into the past of like the late 90s, early 2000s kids and how they kind of lived and how they acted before we had like cell phones and high-tech technology where you can like Snapchat each other and like you could, snap pictures of things to each other. Back then, you had to get a lot more creative, and a lot of interesting things that happen in these films are because they were stuck in the time period where it was harder to kind of be a teenager, if you know what I mean. So, just overall, solid collection. I think the first film is still the best. Second film's good. Third film's all right, and then the American Reunion, I think, is a solid finale to this series. But yeah, the first one is definitely just so good. Just such a great little peek back into the times of back when we were kids, and just really solid. Okay, so one of the best comedies / teen dramas / just solid movie. 10 Things I Hate About You. Heath Ledger, rest in peace, buddy. He is my favorite actor ever, and this film, if not A Knight's Tale right here. I did that in my part 1, but A Knight's Tale and this film is what made Heath Ledger a bomb. He's just so good. So good, taken from us way too soon. It's just such a good movie. Definitely recommend it. It's actually on Disney Plus, so go check it out if you haven't seen it. It's kind of for older kids though, but I mean, it's got some really good lessons in it that I recommend that maybe like all kids could technically watch. This is the original Star Wars Skywalker saga. So this is just episodes 1 through 6. Overall, great collection. This was kind of like the overarching best collection you could get of the Star Wars movies on Blu-ray until episode 7 came out. Pretty much before George Lucas sold the rights to Disney, this was the best collection you can get. Now, of course, we have 7, 8, and 9 out, so it is a little different, but this was a really solid collection. I'm actually going to keep this one separate from the stuff over here because I'm going to keep this pretty much as a collector's edition. I don't necessarily need it anymore, but it's really cool, and I watched these so many times. I can't get rid of this collection, so that's going to stay right here, right next to me. Shrek Quadrilogy. So this actually has Shrek 1, Shrek 2, Shrek 3, and Shrek 4. Clearly, Shrek 1 is really good. Shrek 2 is the best And then Shrek 3 and 4 are fine. You know, I don't think there is a bad Shrek. I just think that Shrek 3 and 4 are a little rougher than 1 and 2. And 1 is good, 2 is amazing. So, yeah. But they all have good things in them, of course. But it's a solid collection, and I had to pick it up. I think they're like $20 on Amazon. So, want to check that out. I'll leave links to that in the description below. Also, I'm going to be leaving links to the majority of all these Blu-rays in the description below. If the Blu-ray that I'm leaving a link for isn't down there, and you want the link for it, I will give you a specific link for it to it on Amazon. I'm now an affiliate on Amazon, so anything that I would necessarily let you buy from there, I'd appreciate it if you would use my link, because I do get part of the profit from that, and I'd appreciate it. Because right now, with the whole situation going on around the world with COVID-19, it's a little rough for us. So that can kind of help coincide with the fact that ad revenue is being spliced almost in half. So, and I don't take like handouts, you know what I mean? I don't do like the, I do have a Patreon. I do have the ability for people to be a member of my channel, but I don't like to force that upon people. So if you want to do that too, cool. But this is another way you can kind of help us out. So if you want to buy one of these Blu-rays, pick it up on Amazon, and I get a portion of that, so I'd appreciate that. If not, that's okay too, but that'd be nice of you. So like I mentioned in my previous video, the reason why I'm actually doing these collection videos is because I wanted to alphabetize my Blu-rays anyways. So I figured, you know, you guys could hang out with me while I did it. That's the whole reason for that. Next, we're going to jump into the interview. So this film made a big splash back in the day with Kim Jong-un and North Korea. If you guys haven't heard of it, I don't know how you didn't, because this movie almost caused World War III, so they say. And it wasn't even that big of a comedy. It's a fine comedy. It's not necessarily great, but I think it's good enough for what it is. It's just funny how this like dumb film almost like caused a war. I mean, it's funny, but it's also kind of sad that we have people, you know, there are leaders out there in charge of nations that act like children. It's just crazy. Fun size. This is one of those. This is like a preteen comedy. It was a pretty solid one back in the day. I don't know if it holds up anymore. I haven't actually seen it for a while, but I remember it being really solid. So this is one of those comedies that anyone can watch. A whole family can. So that's good. Fired Up. Solid comedy. It's another one of those like American Pie type films, but more like spoofing itself. It's a solid movie. It's not for kids, but it's a good comedy, definitely. So about these two guys who go to cheer camp and like they hang out with a lot of the cheerleaders there. So that's kind of how that film goes. I'm not going to go into any more specifics, but it's a good comedy. All right, so this one I actually picked up because this is reminiscent of my past, but this is the 14 film collection of The Land Before Time. And the reason why I picked these up was because when I was a kid, I absolutely loved them. And my daughter is getting around to the point where she can start like watching and understanding films more. And these have really good lessons, especially the first one. So I just had to pick it up just so when she gets older, she can kind of enjoy this stuff with me. And we can watch these movies together because I used to love them too when I was a kid. So definitely love it. Fast and Furious collection. So this actually has... This was a collection that came out when the Fast 7 came out. I picked it up on Amazon for a really good deal. And then there was the Fate of the Furious that I picked up, and I put that in there too. So that wasn't actually there, but this sleeve was there for the future when that film came out. So this initially was the Ultimate Collection, but now there's the 9th one coming out, so I guess I'll have to upgrade. Tell you the truth, I did not like these movies for a long time. And when I picked up this collection for like, I don't know, like $15, like crazy good, I watched them all and I was surprised how much I actually enjoyed these films. They're kind of like the Transformers movies. You just kind of, you sit back, you turn your brain off. After the first one, you sit back, you turn your brain off, and they're enjoyable because of that. So it's pretty much Transformers with people who drive cars instead of Transformers that transform into cars. Yeah, that's pretty much the best example to kind of explain these films. Meet the Spartans. So I was talking about spoof films. I talked about 300 earlier. This is, of course, a spoof on 300. Really good spoof film. I mean, it's not like one of the best ones. It's definitely like the lowest, you know, type of spoof film. But it gets the job done. It's not a movie you take serious. It's a movie you put on when you have your friends around and you're all just kind of hanging out doing something else. You can put this in the background and people can enjoy it. So, like I said, you're not going to really get any... You're not going to become better from watching this film, but you're going to... It's a fun watch, so I recommend it. Another film that I feel like gets way too much hate Avatar. So this film was the highest grossing film of all time, pretty much the most successful film. But I understand people's critiques with it, but I think it's a solid movie. I can't hate it. I think a lot of people really dislike it because it's Dances with Wolves with Aliens, and that's true. But there's a lot of films that are like that, and I think that it does a good job of kind of making it different enough that I like it. So, plus the special effects, they still hold up. And I know that was kind of like its big selling point was the special effects, but this is a collector's edition, so it comes with all this different stuff. A little sleeve for the Blu-rays. And yeah, it's just, overall, it's the extended edition too, so it has all the extra stuff in it, so that's cool. I always get extended edition stuff, 100%. That's just how I am. If I can choose between extended edition or not, I'm doing the extended edition, even if it's like $5 more. That's just how I am. Okay, next movie we have The Lego Movie 2. I actually haven't seen this one yet. I picked it up because the first one was good and this was on sale for like $5, so I was like, I'll pick this up and eventually watch it. So, haven't checked it out. Looks good. Just haven't watched it yet. Oh gosh, this one's so good. Blades of Glory. This is one of Will Ferrell's best films. If you have not seen it, watch it. Such a great, solid comedy. I would put this right behind Step Brothers at Will Ferrell's like best films. So yeah, definitely. Megamind. This is like a solid like superhero film. It's about like a villain who is growing up to be a villain, but then realizes, oh, he's actually can do a lot of good as a good guy, and he makes a hero for him to defeat, but then that hero ends up becoming the villain. Just overall, just a solid like solid comedy animated film. I think it's one of those movies that's like, it's not amazing. It's not as good as Shrek movies, but I think it's entertaining to put on, especially if like you have like younger siblings or even your son or daughter. It's a good comedy to put in the background. Okay, one of the best Christmas comedies of all time, Elf. Not much more to say. You probably already saw it. Solid film. I'm not going to go into any more detail because that's all you need to say. Just overall, amazing film. Alright, so this is the massive Game of Thrones collection. This came out before season 8 was actually out, so I actually bought this on sale on Amazon. I don't remember how, it was a really good price. All 7 seasons. Me and my wife binge watched them before season 8. Then season 8 came out, and it was very sad. So there's all the collections in there. See, this is an example of what I'm not a massive fan of, is when, if you look, they're all like just like the standard covers that come with the Blu-rays. Like, they're not like their own specific thing that is tied to the collection. So it is kind of a shame. But overall, pretty solid collection though, because the first 7 seasons are pretty good. Or at least the first like 5 seasons are really good, and then season 6 alright, and then season 7 is okay, and then season 8 is just trash. So it is what it is. And since we're doing our TV shows right now, I'll do this one too. So this is the Spartacus franchise, Spartacus TV show. One of the best TV shows in existence still. Special effects are a little rough, but the story and the characters make this like show so good. It is not for kids. I can tell you that right now. It is on Netflix. It is not for kids. But if you are a massive fan of Game of Thrones, I think you will love Spartacus, because it does so much that it does different stuff than Game of Thrones, but it does a lot of similar things too. So that's the best way I can kind of describe it. It's kind of like, you know, the movie 300 I just described? The movie 300, but if it was a TV show. And that's just season 1. So you got season 2, season 3, and this is technically season 0. They call it season 2 on Netflix, but it's technically a prequel, so it's actually season 0. So it's overall a really solid film, or really solid TV. If you're stuck inside right now because of the COVID-19 and you're looking for something to do, this series on Netflix, check it out. Just awesome. Season 1 is amazing. The prequel season is really good. Season 2 is good, but season 3 is just so good. It's honestly, the creators of Game of Thrones should have looked at this season 3 of this show and been like, this is what we should be aiming for, and they would have did a lot better. But they didn't, so it is what it is. All right, next one, Sky High. There was this weird time back in like 2005, between 2005 and 2010, or 2012-ish, where like these random superhero movies would come out, and this one is actually off of Disney. So this was like before Disney owned Marvel. They wanted to make their own superhero stuff, pretty much for kids. And this is a really solid movie. I'm actually kind of hoping they make a second one eventually, but they never did. There were other movies that were like this. A movie called Zoom, and there was another one, but those movies were never as good as this one. This one is like the apex of kids superhero movies, in my opinion, but just really good still. The weird thing is about Sky High was I heard that they actually signed on the actors, the main three actors. They signed them on for like 5 more films, but they never continued the contract then, because I'm guessing the films didn't do that good. I knew every kid in my grade loved that film, so I don't know exactly why that didn't go through. I think it was because right around the time they were probably planning the sequels, at the same time as they were planning to buy Marvel. So that was probably around that weird time where it was like, oh, why would we make another superhero movie that no one really necessarily cares about when we can buy Marvel and make those movies and people will love them? And I think that's pretty much the reason. So the reason why the Marvel movies exist is because Sky High did fine, but it didn't do great. So they wanted to. So Sky High pretty much died because the Marvel movies got bought by Disney. That is my opinion, and I'm probably right. Okay, here we got Horrible Bosses 1. So the first Horrible Bosses is good, but the second Horrible Bosses blows this one out of the park. Like, this one was an interesting test they did, and I feel like the sequel film was the film they wanted to make because there's just so much more dynamics into the story and the characters. So I definitely recommend the second one. The first one's fine, but you don't actually have to see the first one to watch the second one. So, yeah, definitely a good comedy, but not really for kids. Hook. So this is a Robin Williams, really solid standalone film. If you haven't seen this one and you want to see Robin Williams at like his prime, I would say this is a great film. It has heart, it's got comedy, but it also knows it's grounded at the same time. So it's probably one of the best Peter Pan movies. I'd probably even put this one above the Disney Peter Pan movies. I'm not even kidding. So, just overall, solid film. Okay, next movie you have the X-Men 3 film collection. So this is the original X-Men movies 1, 2, and 3. This is a really unpopular opinion, but I think X-Men 3 is actually my favorite out of them. That might be because I haven't seen X-Men 1 and 2 for a long time. So maybe I gotta rewatch them. But I remember loving X-Men 3 because it continued moving the story. Like, it wasn't taking so much time to do like boring things in it. Like I said, I haven't seen movies for a long time, so I have to rewatch them. But I picked up this trilogy. It was really cheap one day on Amazon. So, okay, now we come to the Hobbit collection. It was kind of like the Lord of the Rings collection that I did review on. Still pretty solid though. If you look here, you get all of them, and they're all kind of in the same type of design. And like that's how movie collections should be. They should be the same design. They shouldn't be like different Blu-rays from different years that they all just kind of put together to sell as a collection. It should be its own custom look. So it's a solid collection. It's definitely not as good as my Lord of the Rings collection, but it'll do. So next one we have the Hunger Games 4 movie collection. This one kind of bothers me because they just took the DVD sleeve and they put Blu-rays in it, which is okay, I guess. It's just kind of, it doesn't look good with the rest of my movies, but whatever. So got the whole artwork and stuff collection. This I'd say this saga is a pretty solid one. I liked it. I thought it was good. I think the first two were really good. The second one was really good, and then the third and fourth one were fine. There's definitely some story elements that I would have done differently, but I get it. They're kind of stuck to pretty much what the movie did for most of it. It bothers me that in the fourth film, Katniss is pretty much just useless. Like, if you could take her out of the story altogether and the events would still happen the same way, except for the part where she would shoot the chick in the end. But I don't know. It's a little rough. It ended rough, but it's an overall pretty solid collection. Have Easy A. This is one of like Emma Stone's first like big time films, and she did great in it. It's a solid movie. It's not really much more to say. Fun. It's I would describe it kind of like Mean Girls, except for a little less adult. But there are some adult themes in this. But overall, like a younger kid could watch it. I'd say maybe like 8 and up can watch it, and that might be pushing it. Maybe more like 10 and up. But it's a solid film though. Really good. So now we got to the Harry Potter 8 film collection. I have not seen the Harry Potter movies in a long time. I did once rank them, and I think I liked the Goblet of Fire the most. But that's because, I like the premise of them like a tournament. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, you get all the 8 films in here. I'll actually show you. Yep. All the films. So it's a solid collection, and this is actually on Amazon. You can pick this bad boy up for pretty cheap too. So, maybe not too cheap, but sometimes you'll see sales on this thing, and it's a great deal. So, like I said, while I'm not necessarily in love with the Harry Potter franchise, I do appreciate it and I respect it for what it does. So, definitely pick this one up if you are a fan of Harry Potter. Next one we have the 1998 Godzilla film. I picked this up because it was like $3 at a yard sale, and it's so bad, but there are some really interesting elements in it too. It's still bad, but it's got some cool things. And it was $3, so I had to pick it up. Next one, we actually have the High School Musical trilogy. So this was actually, I forgot how I got this. So this actually it's the first movie DVD. Oh, okay, it's one of those pop ones. That was always a weird thing. But I actually have the second and third movies in here. You know, the thing about these movies is when they came out, I despised them. When I was younger, when they came out, they were everywhere. They were the biggest things. I hated these things. But now I look back on them pretty fondly because they remind me of such easier times. And the simple parts of being in middle school. You know, I was a middle schooler when this movie came out, by the way. When the first one came out. I think I was like maybe like a sophomore or a junior by the time the third one came out. But I remember just being like so hateful of these films, but you don't really realize how easy life is for you until you get to a more challenging point in your life. So I remember being in middle school and being like, oh man, I hate this. I can't wait to get out of school, blah, blah, blah. And then you get out of school and you realize, whoa, real life is a lot harder. So it reminds me of good times, so that's why I still have them. Okay, so this movie, Hot Rod. Such a solid comedy. So good, guys. This is such a good comedy. I'm not even kidding. The story isn't like particularly dynamic, but it's just so good, guys. If you have not seen it, watch it. I think it's on Netflix right now. If it's not, find a way to watch it. So good. So underrated, honestly. Okay, next one we have Horrible Bosses 2. I mentioned this earlier. Horrible Bosses 2 is better than the first one, but they're both okay. It's just the second one's a lot better. Next one we have the Little Mermaid collection. So I picked this up because my wife wanted the Little Mermaid on Blu-ray, and then I found a collection that has the second film. Let me think. It has the second movie. So there's the first one. It's got the second one in there, and then it also has a third one, which I guess tells the story before the first one. I don't really know how that goes, but pretty much I wanted the first one, and there was a collection that was just as cheap as just the first one by itself. So I got the collection. But yeah, they're all on Disney Plus now, but I'm still going to hold on to these because my wife loves Little Mermaid, and I bet my daughter's going to like it too. All right, another good comedy, Bad Grandpa. It's from the makers of Jackass. Not much more to say. You know what I mean? When you mention something about made by Jackass, you automatically know what you're getting, and so it's just good. It's a good little like prank comedy type movie. Next one we have the National Treasure Collection. So these movies are some of Nicolas Cage's like best movies. I mean, Con Air is definitely one of his best, but just like Nicolas Cage is like a more sophisticated Indiana Jones who is, I don't really know how to describe him. I mean, it's kind of like Indiana Jones just for kids, I guess you could say, like an Indiana Jones Light. Indiana Jones is already kind of for kids, but this is like for like, I want to say preschoolers. I don't really know how to explain it. It's a good, they're solid movies. The first one's really good. The second one's fine. I mean, they're just good movies. All right, next one, the Spider-Man Sam Raimi trilogy. One of the best trilogies out there as far as superhero movies go. The first two are really good. This third one, it kind of drops the ball, but I think I've come around to actually liking that film now because of its like, it's such a product of its time, and I think it's a solid film now. So while the third one isn't as good as the first one, or not even close to the second one, because the second one is brilliant, still one of the best movies out there, overall, I think this trilogy is very solid. Plus, with Sam Raimi directing the new Doctor Strange, we could essentially see Tobey come back in. So for right now, while those movies aren't in the MCU, if Tobey Maguire does come back, that technically means that his films are now part of the MCU and you can add them to your MCU binges. So that would be pretty cool. Might not happen, but I think that's solid though, honestly. All right, now we're coming to our big Dragon Ball Z collection. For those you don't know, I'm actually a massive Dragon Ball Z fan. I was a bigger fan when I was younger, but I still love these films. And I managed to pick up all the seasons on Blu-ray, real nice and cheap. I think they were like $100 on Amazon. Sometimes they're usually like $150 or something like that, maybe sometimes more. But I got it on sale for a really good price. So if you guys have anyone in your lives who are like massive Dragon Ball Z fans, this might be a good gift for them. This one's called Sex Drive. Good comedy. Not for kids, but good comedy. All right, now this one is also a DVD. I found this in my cousin's old collection that she didn't want anymore, so I was like, I'll take that. I'll cop that bad boy. So what it is the Jimmy Neutron movie. If you guys have not seen Jimmy Neutron, some of the younger people watching probably don't know what I'm talking about. The older people, though, you guys remember this show, and it was the bomb. Now, this is just the movie itself, but the movie was amazing back when I was a kid. The CGI does not hold up at all, at all, but still, the memories from this film, I just couldn't get rid of it, so I gotta hold on to it. Next one, The Duff. So The Duff, another good comedy, kind of like Mean Girls, but not. It's kind of like if the movie Fun Size and Mean Girls kind of made a movie, that would be this. So, good movie. Good movie. Now we have our final films, and I actually did a video on these specific movies, so if you want to check out the video to kind of get like a further like breakdown on them, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And I think that's it. So, let us start with, I guess I'll just show exactly what these are. This is my Star Wars Blu-ray collection. This is all the Blu-rays in their special format, so they're all kind of like matching and stuff. They look really sick. So I'll start with Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace. Very cool cover. Really solid. You guys know what the Phantom Menace is, of course. I don't gotta tell you what that is. Where's Attack of the Clones? Attack of the Clones. A lot better than you would people give it credit for. I think once you change your perspective on the story and you look at Anakin as more of a damaged character and less of just like a jerk who likes to yell at people, I think you end up liking the film better. Revenge of the Sith, the best Star Wars movie out there so far. That cover is amazing. Love this. Going in chronological order, the next one would be Solo. Love that cover. Really cool. Definitely really cool. Like I said, the link for all these movies are going to be in the description below. Some of these are like $12 at most, so you might be able to get a good deal on them. At least they're like $12 for now. They might actually be more soon, so you want to check. If you want to pick them up now. Use my link below. Okay, so we got Rogue One. Pretty solid film. Next one, A New Hope. Good collectible cover right there. Next one, Empire Strikes Back. Known as the best Star Wars movie to a lot of fans. Next one, Return of the Jedi. Solid cover, I like that. And then we got The Force Awakens. Pretty decent cover. I don't like the fact that Luke's on the front of it because it reveals the whole reason for watching that film is to find out what's happening to Luke. And we see him anyway, so it's kind of like, well, why do you have to watch the movie anymore? And then, of course, the most notorious, The Last Jedi. The cover is amazing on this film, though. I actually love that cover. But the film itself has some issues and cracks. I'm not going to get into that in this video, though. So there you go, guys. That is my Blu-ray collection for right now. I'm sure I might have like one or two more hiding somewhere, but that is pretty much my collection. I have all these movies. They're all recommended. They're all very solid. Some are better than others, but ultimately, those are my movies. I hope you guys enjoyed this big 4-part series. I'm going to probably put it all into one big video eventually, so it all kind of like, you don't have to look for different videos. It's always going to be one certain place. Like I said, if there's any of these movies you want a link for to help out the channel, I would definitely appreciate it. Just let me know. I'll comment within like a couple hours, and you can pick up the link, pick it up yourself, and you can help out the channel. So I do appreciate that. But thank you guys for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe for more videos. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.